Welcome to the Metal Voice. Today on the show, guitar Greek god Gus G. What's going on, Gus?
Hey, Jimmy. Yeah, all good here. How are you?
I'm good. All right, so many things I want to talk to you about. I mean, the new album Fearless that was released in April. I'm assuming there's a lot of tours going on, but I want to actually start at the beginning and then work our way up to the new album, if that's okay.
Okay, sure, yeah.
All right, so I mean, I've been to Greece many times in my life, and I've been there in the 80s. What was it like for a guy who wanted to make it in the metal industry or in the music industry? What was it like growing up in Greece?
Yeah. I mean, growing up here, it was not a lot happening. If you played rock or metal, at least when I was growing up, I hadn't heard of any bands really that were, doing anything internationally. So it was always, the dream was always to go to America or whatever, and I don't know, just reading the guitar magazines or watching videos on TV, and like everybody, every musician had their dreams, so yeah. I mean, I'm talking about like pre-internet age now, right? So yeah, things were very different back then. You had to find out what was going on and wait until like the new issue of Metal Hammer or some other magazine was going to come out and see what was going on and whatever. It was cool, man. It was good times. It was a lot. What was it called? What's the word? Not so much stress. A lot more daydreaming and less responsibilities.
Yeah.
So it was good for me. I spent a lot of my youth practicing the guitar and just dreaming away, basically, see how I was gonna make it and how I was. My dream was to basically start a band and then write our own songs. So that's what I worked towards at.
And what do you think at the time Greece was missing? Because Canada, we broke bands in the U.S. The Europe broke bands, at least in some parts of it. What was Greece missing at that time?
Well, hard to say. I don't know. I mean, we never really had a certain industry where you would have the kind of support to sort of break the borders, if you like. The Greek market was always mostly about folk music and the local kind of artists. Another problem, I think, was the lack of professional studios, professional engineers, getting that sound, just like lack of knowledge, basically. So yeah, I mean, it was really tough back then. It was really unheard of if a band had a record deal, outside of Greece.
Okay, so then you decide, I'm going to go to the U.S. and try to break, right? Was that the plan?
Well, for me, it was even worse in the sense that I couldn't even find musicians to play with, because I started playing at a very early age and I progressed pretty fast. So I was always kind of like the young kid. So like the older dudes, they were already in like local bands, so they wouldn't really let me in, So I got myself a drum machine and a 4-track, and I just started making my own demos. And when I was 16 or 17, I did an audition to study at Berklee College of Music, so I got a small scholarship, and that was kind of like my ticket to America, if you like. Just go there and check out what's going on at Berklee College of Music, hoping that I was going to meet other musicians and maybe, who knows, form a band.
And how long did you study in Berklee? And I mean, what was your English like, right? I mean, now you have perfect English. What was your English back then?
My English was pretty good, even at a younger age, because the good thing actually in Greece was that all the movies had subtitles. So I learned a lot from watching TV and movies. And I had also a English teacher, and I was really interested in learning English since I was young. And I think the fact helped that I had some family in Florida. I had an uncle who I would visit every now and then in summertime whenever school was out. So I picked up on my English and the American culture at a very young age, because I would go to America. I would spend some of my summers there.
So you transitioned to Berklee, right? You got in a scholarship at Berklee?
I went there. It was 2 times actually. One was the first time I went to Berkeley was for a summer program. They had like a 5-week summer camp kind of thing, and because I was still in high school, so I did that for that summer, and I made some friends and I liked it. And then I finished high school, and then I came back to study full time. But that's when I realized it really wasn't for me. I was just getting impatient. I just wanted to really play in a band, man. So just to me, that was the real thing. So I decided like 2 or 3 weeks later to just drop out. And that was that. But I ended up living in the States for about a year, and then eventually I moved to Florida because my uncle was there. I was working at his restaurant and just trying to play in a local band or something, and that didn't work out. That was like around the end of the 90s when traditional metal was not it was not cool to play that. You know, it was not even cool to play solos in songs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I was frustrated, and I went back home, and I eventually ended up moving to Sweden, in Gothenburg, because I had some friends who were recording in the studio, and the Swedish metal scene was blooming at the time.
Cool. And then of course there's, you know, like, I mean, we were fast forward a little bit, you know, Mystic Prophecy, Archangel, you started joining bands slowly, right?
Well, yeah, that stuff started happening when I was in Sweden. That was in 1999. I was just making my demos, and I met the producer, Fredrik Nordstrom. We started a band called Dream Evil, and we're just working on the early demos. And then through a friend of mine, I heard there was another Greek singer who was living in Germany, who was like in some small prog band, and then he wanted to put a new band together, and they put us in touch, and then that became, I went over there to do some, that was actually my first recordings, like my first actual album recording. That was the first Mystic Prophecy album. Yeah. But at the same time, I had my hands on like the early Firewind demos and the early Dream Evil demos. So I was working on a bunch of things, hoping that one of those things would maybe get signed or something.
I guess, where was the connection from, you know, sort of like touring, I guess it was touring with Ozzy, right? Where they actually, it must have caught Ozzy's eye, or management, right?
I really don't know how that came about, to be honest. It's still a mystery to me to this day. Maybe, you know, in 2005, like fast forward, this is like late 90s, I'm fast forwarding to 2005, yeah. I got a call from Michael Amott to help him out on his tour that he had with Arch Enemy. They were going to be at Ozfest that summer, and his brother had quit the band, so they asked me if I could help him out and then just go out and do the summer tour. So, you know, I just ended up being a touring guitarist for Arch Enemy. I even did like a solo on one of their tracks on that album they put out that summer. So, you know, there I was at Ozfest with Maiden and Sabbath, and, you know, we're playing the second stage with Arch Enemy, and it was amazing. You know, all of a sudden my first big American tour. And I think that what happened that summer, I think there was like some announcement that I saw on Blabbermouth that Ozzy was parting ways with Zach, and he was looking for a guitar player. So I think I popped in at the production office one of the days of the tour, and I just left a Firewind CD on there at the desk, and I said, "Hey, I'm on second stage with Arch Enemy, and I heard you're looking for a guitar player."
I like that. I like that. Here's my CV, right? Boom, right on the table.
Yeah, so, you know, it's like I'll check it out, and but nothing came out of that. I didn't hear anything because apparently Zach continued with Ozzy. They made another record, Black Rain, and they did a tour and all that. And I mean, now fast forward into 2009. I mean, meanwhile, I was doing my records with Firewind. The band was having a little bit of success in Europe and Japan and all that. Yeah. Even actually doing pretty good in the States at some point. So, you know, fast forward to 2009, and I was getting the email. I got an email from the management, and that's when they asked me to audition for him.
To get an email, right? I get emails every day. I mean, did you think it's authentic? I mean, is this real, or is this a joke?
No, I thought it was authentic because the person that emailed me, I knew not personally, but I knew the name because he was working at Ozfest, and I remembered him from the Ozfest.
Yeah, okay.
So I knew he was working for Sharon's management. So, and that's what was shocking about it, that it was real.
What did you feel? I mean, you get an email saying, "Oh, can you audition for Ozzy?" I'm assuming it was an audition, right?
Yeah, it was an audition. Yeah. I don't know. It was crazy, man. I couldn't sleep for 3 days. I couldn't even believe it.
That's it. I don't know.
Yeah.
How does anybody react to something like that? It's like, I made it, the little kid from Thessaloniki made it, right?
So I was thinking, at that point, I'm thinking, well, listen, I'm going to go in and do this. And I didn't really expect that anything would come out of that. I'm like, well, I definitely didn't think of myself being that good for the band, for the part of the guitar player in the band. But I thought, you know what, if nothing else, it'll be a thing to remember for life, They'll fly me over to LA, I'll get in a room and jam with Ozzy, like, privately, and that'll be a fucking story to tell everybody, So I said, what do I got to lose? Nothing, I just get there, I meet them, and you never know.
So tell me about the audition. I mean, now you got me curious. Okay, so they fly you to LA. What songs did you play? Like, what was their reaction?
We played Bark at the Moon, I Don't Know, Suicide Solution, Paranoid, and I Don't Want to Change the World. I think 5 or 6 songs, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think Ozzy looked impressed right from the get-go. I guess somebody showed him some video of me before, and he was like, this is the guy, he's got the sound, whatever, so, like, get him over here. So he even told me before the audition, he said, don't have any stress, man, because I saw some videos of you, and I think I have a really good feeling about this, so if you make any mistakes, don't worry about it, it's rock and roll. So he really was really cool with that, and broke the ice right away. So the audition went well, actually.
Were you nervous? Were your fingers like sweating as you're going up and down the fret?
No, because I thought they wouldn't give me any time to warm up and stuff, but actually they let me there in the room with the band before even Ozzy and Sharon got in. They let me there to warm up for a couple of hours, and we ran through the songs a few times. So by the time he came in, I was pretty ready. I mean, by that time, I knew I could do it,
Were you by yourself or with the band?
I was with the band.
Okay. Was it
Blasco and Tommy was there.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so after...
Actually, it's funny because it was kind of the unofficial audition for Tommy as well, because Mike Borden was out doing some shows with Faith No More for the reunion. So Tommy came in because he was Blasco's friend to fill in, to help him out for the audition for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they saw him, and they were like, wow, he's also pretty great.
Yeah. All right, so you play all these songs, about 5 songs, and then what's the reaction right after? You got the gig and they just shake your hand, or what, sign here?
Ozzy just turned around and said, you're fucking great, and and I said thank you, and they went into a room and they chatted there, whatever they said, for a few minutes, and then they came out and they asked me if I wanted to come back and play a gig.
Okay, so that was probably a second audition, right? That was like, see how he does on stage.
Yeah. So
and where was that gig? I don't remember.
That was the BlissCon convention in Anaheim.
Okay, and then after that gig, they said, okay, we want you, is that it?
Actually, they didn't say anything after that gig. He seemed to be pretty pleased. I was not so happy with my performance and everything, but they seemed to be pleased about it or whatever, or happy about it. And then I went back home, and then I got another mail a week later, and they said, he's going to do this Sunset Strip Music Festival, and would you like to come out, and would you be available to come out and play? It's going to be like a short set. And then I went out for that. And like when that was happening, Ozzy invited me down to his house and to listen to some of the new material. So I ended up staying like for a few days and played some solos. So it was just a little bit of there was like a trial period going on for a while. So then I went back home and didn't hear anything for about a month. And then I got an email from Sharon asking me to come back and actually play on the whole record and, play all the guitars, and because they didn't have any solo sections and stuff like that. So
did you play the rhythm? Did you play the rhythm?
Yeah, I played all the rhythms, all the clean acoustic, all the leads and stuff. I mean, we created the lead parts. There were no solo parts, so.
So were you at that point? Okay, you still hasn't been officially announced. You just working on the album with them. Is that it?
Well, I had done 2 gigs, so the news were out there already. And Ozzy said I'm working with a new guitar player. So, but those kind of things go day by day. It's not like.
Yeah.
There were never any kind of, okay, you're the guy, and you're gonna be here for the next 10 years and you're gonna do this. And it was never like that. It was all kind of like taking it day by day.
I got you.
I think the whole thing got a bit more serious when I was in there doing the record, and at the end, it was like, okay, let's do an album and a tour. That's what we'd like from you, and that went on to become 7 years in the band. So
yeah. Scream recordings, right? Did you ever say to yourself, man, I'd like him to listen to this song, maybe you can use this song? And did he give you any creative freedom, or is it sort of like, okay, the music is done, we just want you to play this?
Yeah, that was the situation. They had already done the record. They were already happy with the songs, and because Ozzy and Kevin Churko, the producer, they were working on it for quite a while. So yeah, I mean, it was a situation where we were gonna go in and rewrite the whole thing,
Yeah, because I remember when I spoke to Blaze Bayley, he says this one regret with Maiden is he didn't stand up right at the beginning because he was the new guy. He was scared. You're the new guy. You don't want to stir the waters, right? But he goes,
right.
If I would have just told them, I don't want to sing the Bruce songs, the really high ones, then everything would have gelled a lot better, That one regret. I mean, was there any regret saying, you know what, man, I should have given them that song. I should have stood up for myself.
There's two ways about this. You can, of course, try to kind of like stand up and say, hey, I'd like to bring in my songs and do this and do that. And they can either listen to you and maybe feel like, oh, yeah, maybe we should listen to this. Or they could be like, you know what, go home, we'll get somebody else.
Yeah, that's what Blaze was worried about too, right? I mean, new guy. That's a new guy thing.
And for me, that was the situation. I was like, I was also new to this world. I mean, I guess much like Blaze, I was just used to being in my own band. So
yeah,
I was trying to figure out what exactly they wanted out of me. What kind of guitar player were they looking for? I mean, my background was like a power metal band.
Yeah.
Power metal band. I'm like, how does a guy like me fit into this kind of spotlight? Now I have to become this guy, successor of all these iconic guitar players, but I mean, they saw something. I mean, they believed in it, and but it was a different situation, like trying to do what? Like they already had an album written, and then what are you gonna go in there and do your thing? I mean, that was not the gig. That was not the requirement. So
I gotcha.
And I was not also used to being a sideman. That was like I said, it was a new world to me. So yeah, I just played by the rules, just played along, and tried my best given the circumstances. That's what it was, really.
Sure. Now you're playing, with Ozzy live. I mean, which guitarists did you find the most challenging? From the Randy Rhoads to Jakey Lee to Zach, which ones did you find challenging to play live, or more challenging?
No, I mean they were all challenging, man. They were all amazing and unique players, and it's always a hard question to analyze. I think every guy had their own thing. So every guy had their own sort of vibe and different licks and different stuff they would do. I mean, technically wise, if you want to talk technically wise, because I come from that background, growing up listening to all that stuff, it felt like home to me in the sense that this is the kind of school of guitar that I was used to and brought up upon. So it was not like a foreign thing to me, for my playing.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I don't know. It's hard to say, man. I think I always go back to the Randy and Jakey Lee era. Mm-hmm. I like that stuff. I really like the Jakey Lee records.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, they're really good. And also, of course, the Randy stuff. Yeah, I mean, I was a fan of all those guys. Zach as well, man. I love his stuff. What he did on No More Tears and No Rest for the Wicked. That stuff is amazing.
Yeah, it's true. So now you're sort of like you're touring with Ozzy. Now there's this big break. There's a Black Sabbath thing going on. I mean, are you writing songs in your head? Are you going, maybe I'll put some songs aside, and ideas aside for Ozzy? Because if he ever gives me the call, I want to be ready and maybe give some of my material to him.
Yeah, I wrote a lot of ideas preparing for a possible next album. Yeah, I mean, at some point he even texted me and asked me to send him a bunch of riffs. So I think I submitted like ideas for 12 or 13.
Okay, so there
13
was songs.
But I mean, nothing came out of that. We even wrote a couple of songs together on the road while on the Scream tour, and Actually, one of them I ended up using on the new album Fearless. It's called "Don't Tread on Me." I mean, not with his lyrics or melodies. Obviously, we rewrote that, but I had the music and the arrangement from back then, and I wanted to use that song. I thought it was a cool track.
It's a good segue into your new album. So Fearless. Okay. I mean, what was the musical vibe you were going for?
Just hard rock, good hard rock and metal songs, man. Just really. Taking what I've already started in the first two albums and taking it a bit further, and just making a more making it sound like a band effort rather than just an experimental record, because that's what the first two records were, just working with different people. But now I had like a solid one solid co-writer and co-producer, which is Dennis Ward. So me and him, we just co-wrote the whole thing, and I think that's why it sounds a bit more cohesive compared to the first two records.
I'm hearing a little Ozzy, I'm hearing a little Scorpions, maybe even a little touch of AC/DC there. I'm hearing kind of like the bands of the 80s style, you know, and that side of vibe with that big flashy guitar. I mean, was that done on purpose or just naturally came out?
It's natural, man. I mean, that I think my style it's definitely fits into the whole 80s scene. And I would say when I say the 80s, I mean that I was not like a fan of the hair metal stuff or the sleaze rock and all that. Just like the classic 80s metal, you know. So you definitely hear all those kind of influences all over in the record.
I'm really digging also the instrumentals on the album, which I think are pretty phenomenal. I like the catchiness. Thanks. I like the melody on it. It's just a little bit of everything for everyone, right? And to me, it really takes me back to the 80s, and it's a big sound.
Cool, man.
And
Thanks.
What about a tour? Are you planning on touring as Gus G? Are you planning on touring as I don't know, Firewind? What's your tour plans?
Well, we just finished a world tour with Firewind 3 months ago, so now we're only doing a couple of festivals this summer. But and I already did a little tour in Europe in support of the new solo record. But I'm gonna continue from September. We're starting out with in America, going out with Vinnie Moore and Richie Kotzen.
Yes.
And they're both hell of players, amazing guys. And after that, I'm going to go back and do headline tours in the UK and Europe, probably until the end of the year. And who knows what's going to come up next year. There's already a couple of festivals booked, so I'm doing the Monsters of Rock cruise, so probably there's going to be some more gigs next year.
All right. So just tell me, last question, your favorite track off the new album and why?
Oh, hard to say, man. I like most of them.
All right.
I actually like all of them.
There's got to be one.
But, I don't know. I really like the opening track, "Letting Go."
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's a really good mix of like a classic metal track, but also has a really modern element, modern touch. Yeah, I really like that one.
All right, everybody, go pick up Fearless. It was released in April. It's out now. Excellent album. Gus G, my guest. Thanks for being on the show, and catch you on tour when next time you're in Montreal, Canada.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jimmy.
All right, man. Have a nice night. Okay.